Welcome to the Yanagita Podcast Show, episode 24. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm with special guests. We got Aesza, aka Panda, and we got Penny Thomas, who's a multiple-time Jiu-Jitsu ADCC world champion. And thank you for coming on. And before we get into it, I just want to say, Penny, just one more time that I have so much respect for who you are and what you have done for the world of Jiu-Jitsu. And you know, I'm personally have been a big fan since I remember. Yeah, when I first started. So how did you get started in all of this, Penny? How did you get started?
Hello. Well, thanks for having me, firstly. It was I was 20 years old, maybe 21 actually. I was living in the UK at the time. And my family in South Africa, my dad got sick and my family was like, come back home for a little bit. My dad was really not well. So I decided to go back to South Africa after being in the UK. And I don't know if you're familiar with any of the stories about South Africa, but it is, a violent-ridden country. I had been stabbed in the chest, cars had been stolen.
Oh my God.
We've had incident, like everybody gets affected. There's no ways you can avoid it there. So when I made the decision to move back to South Africa, I thought I had to train some kind of self-defense. So I had started kickboxing because I didn't know what jiu-jitsu was. I think it was the year 2001 in South Africa. So, hardly anybody in the States had known about jiu-jitsu. It was way behind the times. But I found a group of guys training at this kickboxing school, and they got a VHS tape. It was like a kung fu group of people, and they had a VHS tape of Carlson Gracie. So then they started rolling, just like, this guy and his brother, and then a few friends, and then they got a bit more of a group together. So when I joined them in 2001, they had only been playing around for about a year with this VHS tape, and we'd never had any Brazilians or any formal instruction. It was just this group of kung fu guys that kind of crossed over and were like, oh, what's this ground game? We've got to add this to our repertoire. And then that was it. Once I started training with them primarily as a self-defense move, then I just started to really enjoy it, understand it a little more. It was frustrating at first, you just don't know what's going on. There's so many aspects, but once I started to enjoy it, and then that was it. Just game on every day, training, working a full-time job, training at night, running the school from our garage, going to Brazil every year with our 3 weeks that we had of leave, going back to the slog for the rest of the year, saving up money, saving up leave, so it was like that for, the first 10 years. It's been a crazy ride and it's been awesome.
Oh my gosh, 10 years. That's incredible. And, that just thinking about the origin and how you were saying it was frustrating in the beginning. And what would you say, like, for a brand new person that's listening to this, who's never done jiu-jitsu, maybe some like advice for someone maybe on the fence of starting, or kind of like your experiences in the beginning?
Right. You got to find a friend that you like to go with. It's intimidating going into a jiu-jitsu school. It's very close contact, so that's something that a lot of people have to get over with right away. You're like in somebody else's space. There's no like social distancing in jiu-jitsu. So if you have a friend that you're comfortable with, if you're a girl, maybe look up where the girls' classes are. That's maybe one way to get in the door without being overwhelmed at first. And then just stick with it. It's going to be frustrating at first, but that's just because jiu-jitsu works so well. People that have been training it for a little while, even if they're skinny and small, can easily subdue a bigger opponent. So when I started, I'm quite a big girl, and we have lots of Indians in South Africa. And so one of my first training partners was a skinny little Indian guy. And he had been training, about 6 months more than I had. And he was just destroying me. So it's like, it's frustrating, but it's like, it proves it works. So you got to kind of stick with it, leave your ego at the door, find a fun group of training partners with no ego, and the rest will fall into place. It's just, it keeps your mind busy as well. It's not like you're just going into a gym and you're lifting up weights 10 times, which I do too. I do my strength and rehab stuff, But as far as like my everyday enjoyment for jiu-jitsu, I think it's just because it's so challenging mentally as well. You're not just counting to 10, 100 times and lifting up something heavy. It's like there's a strategy, there's a plan, there's like execution, there's games while you're playing. All these are going on. So it's very stimulating. I would say frustrating at first, but if you stick with it, there's nothing more fun, I don't think, than choking somebody out.
I agree about that. Oh my goodness. So Penny, help us for the audience, for the dots, so you said you're in South Africa, you're going back and forth to Brazil, and then some point you moved to UK, and then some point you came to Hawaii and San Diego, because I remember there was a time you moved to San Diego, and then you were competing, living with the ladies at Gracie Humaita. And then, so when did that transition happen? What year was that?
That was, I had met Leticia Ribeiro in Brazil many times. I had gone there every year to compete at the Worlds that used to be in Brazil, in Rio. And I had met Leticia there multiple times. And we'd started up a friendship, just by training a little bit in Brazil. And she couldn't speak much English and I couldn't speak much Portuguese, but it was just one of those characters that just, you didn't have to say much. You trained hard, you sweated hard, you smiled, we got some food and just kind of grew. And then she was living in Brazil at that time and I had moved to Hawaii, and it was pretty tough. I had 4 jobs living here. I had to pay rent. I had to, every time there was a tournament, pay airfare, car hire, hotel. It wasn't, I was kind of working just to stay on top of all my bills and be able to compete. So I didn't feel like I was really getting ahead so much. It was just a kind of a constant struggle. As you know, this is not the cheapest state to live in. And then Leticia called me one day, it was, I think, in 2008. And she said, "We're moving to San Diego, come." And I was like, okay, when are we going? So then she moved to San Diego with Morango. I moved with them. We stayed on the floor in a house. We started training in San Diego. I was there for 5 years. It was just so much more convenient. The tournaments are every weekend if you want. Around there's, Grapplers Quests. At that time, they were pretty common to be at least one a month. So it was just so much easier for me. There was a bigger support network of people that were training. We had a huge girls team at one stage. It was just a fantastic time. So yeah, just that was thanks to Leticia, being back in San Diego and training and competing. And then after 5 years or so, I was getting nearer to 30 and not competing quite as much. And I had still been back to Hawaii to visit, every spare moment I had. So I think in 2013, I finally made the move back full time. Just knowing that I'm not, wanting to compete full time. I wanted to kind of still train and that, but not, revolve my life around all the tournaments around. So that's how we got to San Diego.
Wow. So that's incredible, because thinking about just the humility aspect of like what you were saying, you were just sleeping on the floor and just getting after it and competing and training all the time. And so in that 2008 to 2013, you were training all the time and just, wow.
It was full time. We were training 3 times a day. We had a strength and conditioning coach. He was an amazing guy. He was a Navy SEAL instructor named Steve Nave. He passed from a heart attack, unfortunately, a few years back, but he was amazing. He had his own space at World's Gym in San Diego. He took us as a team under his wing. We trained with him daily. We did jiu-jitsu daily. We did rehab daily. We had sports medicine guys, rehab chiropractors, everyone working with the team. And we ate together, we slept together, we trained together. Just when you're on that train and there's a group of people with that same goal, one day one of us is tired, but then you've got like 5 other people being like, well, if you slack today, we're going to get you tomorrow. So it's just so easy, to go with the flow of just being on that program when you have a group of like-minded people, supporting you too. So, yeah.
See, that's incredible. Yeah. And so during that 5-year tenure, I can't remember. I thought I remember watching different interviews, maybe like around that time, 8, 9 years ago, about with the Budo Jake, and also I think it was an interview you were talking about kids classes and a women's class. I can't remember if it was at Victory MMA or something like that.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
teaching there.
Yeah. So I just wanted to share, like, what are your thoughts on like kids class, and why do you speak so highly about kids classes and women's only
I think
classes?
it's for getting girls through the door, the main thing I think for most women is that extreme awkward closeness that they have to get over. And maybe sometimes hygiene too, with like the smell of men compared to the smell of women, or there's little differences. And I think it's really great. I mean, when I first arrived in America, I wanted to train with the girls. Like I was by myself. I didn't know anyone in the industry here at that time. And I just felt like I would be safer in an environment that, so Leka had a girls' gym at that stage. And I went to train there, and it was, she was just such a rude cow to me. And I just couldn't, I was so bummed. I was like, man. And then I ended up, traveling around, a while before I found Leticia and ended up settling with that team. But I just feel like if I had had like a nice supportive women's group from the beginning, it would have just been a lot easier. I think there's a lot of characters, I guess, in every sport, but it's just, I feel a bit of a safer environment and a bit easier of a transition for women to get into the sport if there's a group of women, and for the kids, the sooner the better, right? Jiu-jitsu is working on strength, it's working on flexibility, it's working on coordination, it's working on focus and discipline and all those really great attributes that we try to instill in our kids. So, if it's not jiu-jitsu, it should be gymnastics, but to get your kid as young as possible, 4 or 5 years old, they should already be in classes. And if they come up with that lifestyle of, okay, we do some schoolwork, we do some training, we eat, that kind of keeps their day busy rather than, okay, no one's here to get me from school, I'll just hang around with the other kids, they've got nothing to do. And, so it just kind of eliminates a whole lot of issues. So, I started training gymnastics when I was 5, and I had a very strict regimen. So I've never had much free time, to kind of goof off and get into trouble. Although if I had, I might have got into a little more. So, there's no negative aspects to getting your kids in. And, they just, my daughter, she's 4, and, after she's had a good workout and a good sleep the next day, you can tell, it's, there's so many benefits. It's criminal for you not to get your kid in. And there's so many jiu-jitsu schools here on Maui, that there's no excuse.
Oh man. And like I just love that you're talking about all the different attributes that it teaches kids, from the discipline and doing stuff and getting the exercise. And I wanted to touch about when you're competing too. We have a bunch of questions from like our audience, and Panda or Asia also has some questions as well. And one of them was, people would ask, how did you guys eat when you guys were training?
Mornings would be oats, wake up and just have a light oat breakfast. And then it's, then the first training we did was jiu-jitsu in the morning. And so you'd burn all that up real quick. And then we'd have a lunch. We'd go either, the girls that were training with Leticia, we had our own space. So we had our own kitchen, and then we'd just take turns cooking. So, whatever salad with a protein or pasta or something really basic. Then there'd be the strength training or personal training, at noon, or not at noon. So we train probably from like 10 till 12 jiu-jitsu, and then we'd have lunch. And then in the afternoon would be a session of whatever, so swimming or weightlifting or whatever. And then there'd be nighttime training. So that would just be like us going, we wouldn't have to like roll hard at night, but we would go to the class and review techniques and do just some drills and stuff. So it was, and then, after dinner would be, after training would be dinner of barbecue. Brazilians love to barbecue. So we'd had a lot of barbecues. But it was, pretty much none of us were watching closely our diet, except for around tournament time. If any of us had to drop some weight, it was pretty much eat whatever, but it was always good food. The Brazilians don't really have processed as much. It's always like beans, rice, pasta, meat, salads, as a general kind of every day that would be on the menu. I don't eat meat, so it was a bit tricky. I would have to just supplement with some protein powders, or maybe have a few more eggs, or I eat fish, so from time to time and all of that. But it wasn't like we were focused on diet. Obviously, it makes your body perform good. So a lot of home cooking.
A lot of home cooking. I like that you guys take turns in the cooking part. That's really awesome, man. Yeah. So I'm going to just open up to the questions from our viewers and audience. And one of the first questions that I thought would probably help people if they're listening to this is, what was that like getting ready for the nerves and the preparation to ADCC and all of your world's preparation? Because I know this person probably talking about like the pressure and the nerves and what your mindset was.
The nerves, I was saying, I was competing as a gymnast from very young, so I think I was a lot more at ease with those nerves going into tournaments. We always competed from a young age. It was training and then ultimately a competition. So it's always been a part of my training. Definitely feel those nerves going into it, those little bubbles. It stops you from being lazy. It just gives you a little bit more of an edge. And make sure that those nerves are as much at bay as I can is just to train as hard as I can to know, and just being confident enough to know that, okay, now I'm going into my tournament, and I've done more work than anyone else, and I'm more ready than anyone else, and I deserve this as much as everyone. So I think as long as you prepare yourself properly and you don't, if you're lazy and you skip trainings and you kind of go and you kind of get, then it's like, okay, you're gonna, it might not go my way or whatever. But if you've really put in all your hours, you've made sure you've done all your strength training, you've done all your drills, you've done hours, there's nothing more you can do, then you go, then you're ready. But those nerves, I think you need a little bit of those. And I worry if I don't have them, something's up, then I'm not then I'm not quite ready. So you just got to harness them. I mean, you might throw up, you might run to the bathroom 15 times before your match, but just get over your first one. Once that first one is done, then the rest of the day is amazing. Your nerves feel like you can't even talk, but as soon as you step out onto the mat, then all of that fades away, and you feel good. So just do the work, and you'll
do
put
the
those
work. I like that. I like how you're mentioning about, have that belief of like all the work that you put in, the training, the time, you're making it to practices and all that. And then goes into the next questions. Aesza, I know you had some questions for Penny as well.
Yes. So given your experience and your amazing accomplishments with all your competing, what would you say was the toughest or most exciting match of your career?
The toughest, I would have to say, would be Cyborg. That lady has some man strength. She is intimidating to look at. You think she's going to punch you in the face if you look the other way. She's scary. It was strong. I won. I faced her in ADCC in 2009. It was the semifinals, and I was so nervous going in with her. She's got such a reputation, and I remember at one point trying to put a triangle on her, and then she just lifted me up. She was standing up. She was lifted me up I weighed 15 kilos. And I was in this triangle, and I was oh, are they allowed to slam? Should I let this go? All these crazy things, because she's so strong and crazy, tough. So I don't know. I wouldn't say I beat her. I won the match, but I'm more I claim to have survived that match with Cyborg, and somehow in the jiu-jitsu, point system, I managed to win. But I'd say she was definitely one of the toughest matches I've ever had. I have a question for Aesza. Why panda?
Oh. It's a nickname that Clyde actually kind of bestowed on me. It's Silent Panda because
Silent panda.
according to him, I guess, um, of course I have the panda appearance, and then I guess like pandas from the exterior, they don't look like very threatening, and then like you forget that they're still wild. I
And then
guess
you feed them grass and they rip your head off.
yeah, just Silent Panda. It just stuck.
Okay.
You know, it was just incredible, Penny, because speaking of ADCC, I think this was one of your matches. I remember watching, it was '09 or something like that. Was it, was your open class against Gabby?
There was. I've fought Gabby 4 times, I think, all in all. And I've beaten her once. She is just a Goliath that it's all like, oh, jiu-jitsu, it's all about technique and not strength. But when you get like a 6'5" behemoth that weighs 220 kilograms, which is like 200 and something pounds, it's it's not much you can do. She's just got she kind of head, kind of stuffs your head, gets on top, and it's difficult to move. I didn't fight her in ADCC. I did fight her in the Abu Dhabi Pro, which was a gi tournament. That's like the equivalent gi tournament, because the ADCC is no gi. So I had faced her there in the finals. They actually made a meme of one of the matches. It's a Gracie Barra one. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's got like Gabby is like over here and I'm over here, and I'm just like, I'm going for this double leg. But it's just like I'm running into like a brick house. I'm just like, I'm going, but it's just like she's just like 3 times my size. And the meme's like, oh, when size starts to matter. It's like, oh, great. So I'm on the meme for like when jiu-jitsu doesn't actually work for small people. But I mean, she's putting in her time training. Like if you've seen her lately, she is ripped. She's strong. She's got technique. She's been doing jiu-jitsu for many years. She's trained with really good guys. She's put the work into. And then she's got her strength, her size, and everything as well. So it's really tough. Like she is, she's one of the toughest women out there, I think, to date.
Oh man, that's incredible. I gotta dig up that meme now.
Yeah.
Gracie Baja meme. Oh man. But yeah, I know, Aesza, I know you had 1 or 2 more questions. What were they again?
Yeah. So given the length of how long you've done jiu-jitsu, how long did it take you to get your black belt, and what was receiving your black belt like?
Let me think. It was, I think, 8 years from the time I started to the time that I got my black belt. But it wasn't, like I was just doing jiu-jitsu 2 or 3 times a week. I was doing jiu-jitsu every single day. I was going to Brazil to train intensively there for weeks on end. I was training multiple times daily, not just a couple of times a week. So I think generally, it's around 10 or so years, but I got it a little quicker just because I was on the mat as much. And for me, it wasn't like the highlights of any career that I've done a lot of different sports and that, and getting my black belt wasn't like I had imagined it would be that moment of like one of the best of my life. It didn't work out that way, but I mean, you got to look at it like the belt is 2 inches, so if you're doing jiu-jitsu for the belt, it's not you're not really doing it for the right reasons. And so I just kind of, I got it unceremoniously one day in a small class from a teacher that I'd only worked with for a short time. It's I guess in South Africa there was nobody there to give it to me. You have to have a 2-degree black belt to give you your black belt, so there was just nobody in South Africa at that stage. And I'd always imagined like, oh, I'd be on the podium at Worlds, maybe winning brown belt, and then, you know, someone coming up and giving me a black. But it was very unceremonious. There was like 5 people in a morning class, and the instructor at that time was like, oh, here we go. I'm like, what? Really? Okay. I mean, I was stoked and all that. You know, I was actually not so stoked because I was just about to compete at a tournament that now it put me up in black belt division. I was like, really? You couldn't wait? Wait till after the competition. You know, but anyway, I'm stoked. And now I get all my you know, promotions from Leticia under Gracie Humata. So, you know, I'm very proud of that. But, you know, actually for me anyway, getting my black belt wasn't like much of a moment in my life, just because it was so unceremonious. But more is just like the friendships and the tournaments and the memories that I've made getting there. You know, it wasn't so much like a party, like it wasn't like a celebration of the belt itself. But yeah, maybe hopefully for you guys it will be like a much happier, you know, event. But you know, it's 2 inches of your ass, the rest you got to cover. So, you know,
I love that quote. Gold is just 2 inches that covers. Oh, dang. You know, I just love this, Patty. You're so humble, and like so many jiu-jitsu people are so humble about things, and it's just like it's such a beautiful thing. And I think that initially attracted me to it in high school, just like as a teenager being bullied. I was like, you know what, I gotta find someone. And so it was actually Coach Keith's wife came up to me one day, hey man, you want to try this jiu-jitsu thing? And I was like, what is this? And never looked back. And the humility aspect is just so beautiful about it. You know, everyone's just checking themselves, and it's just so crazy because you wouldn't imagine such nice human beings to be killers. Like I'm just like, oh my God. That's what we would joke about. Like, oh my goodness, it's just and it's beautiful. And so I'm just really loving and appreciating every moment. And so, yeah, I know before we go into some of our last couple questions, Penny, I just want to acknowledge you, man, just for hopping on today, getting after it and doing this, spreading, you know, what you're doing. And so, yeah, with that said, Panda, what else you got?
You know so much about the competition aspects of jiu-jitsu, and you're very involved with the women of jiu-jitsu. What would be your advice for up-and-coming young female competitors?
Mat time, just getting on the mat and being confident. Tournaments, you know, so much can happen in a tournament. You know, jiu-jitsu is so subjective as well. You know, if you don't submit your opponent, you know, there's lots of controversy as to like who would be the winner. It's like the referees get left in charge of a lot. You know, it's up to their discretion as to whether they award points for certain things, if it's held for long enough, or there's a lot of kind of gray zones. So you know, it's I think it's super fun. Like, you don't learn anything as well as you do when you lose a competition. You know, like, you can train and be on the mats and get submitted 100 times with the same armbar, and you're like, okay, it just happens, whatever. But if that happens in a tournament, you know, you can you're really kind of forced to analyze what you do in a competition. You know, with like training on the mats, it's like, okay, everyone makes mistakes and all that. You don't really analyze it and break it down. But if you, in a tournament, like, you watch the match, you review the match, you got your friends that have been watching, they reviewing. So it's a definite, like, it's a sharp, steep learning curve if you analyze your jiu-jitsu matches in a tournament, because you know, there's just so much to go over, and you really learn from those mistakes. It's not like it's just a school, like a general class where you, okay, yeah, it was a mistake, whatever. You really like, man, I lost that medal because of this one little thing that I did. So you really learn from those mistakes. So if you're up for it, you know, I think it's a great way to improve your game a lot quicker than if you were just on the mat, as well as learning, you know, the really hard lessons from your losses in tournaments. It's also a great way to motivate you to train, you know, if you're entered into a competition. and then, okay, I'm feeling a little lazy, but oh wait, I have a tournament in 3 weeks. So get to the gym, get it done. You know, there's no room for slacking. So I think it's a great way to motivate, and it's a great way to learn from, you know. So I think it's just all around like a good environment, you know, a good experience, you know. Most of the time, you know, there are some craziness that happen in tournaments, but that's more like high level or whatever. But the people that are wanting to get in and experience it for the first time, you know, all positives, go for it. It's going to help your training. It's going to help your technique. And it's such a fun day. You got all your friends shouting at you and, you know, supporting you. And it's just, you get that team feeling, and yeah, go do it, compete.
Great advice. Oh man, you know, winding down to our last couple questions, and we're just wondering if our audience wants to find you and check you out, where can they find you, Penny?
I think the easiest way is Instagram or Facebook. I've had a couple of websites over the years, but they just need constant maintaining and upgrading and all this stuff. So it's just, I kind of fall behind maintaining those because I was doing that myself. Whereas, you know, social media is just super easy. So it's Penny Thomas on Instagram, on Facebook. If you can message me through there, if you have any questions on trainings or, you know, coming to Hawaii to train or competition or whatever, you know, I'm pretty good with getting back to people that message me or reach out. So that probably would be the easiest way.
Got it. Instagram. We'll put that in the description. And so, Penny, second to the last question. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self, I know you're in South Africa. What advice would you share with yourself at 18?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. So many mistakes I've made, but it's all, I mean, none of them have been so far too detrimental. What would I say to my 18-year-old self? I don't know. Maybe just to enjoy the moments more. Like I've always had goals where, okay, I've got to like put my head down, get through this grind, and then I will be able to enjoy myself once I've reached that stage, you know. So maybe a bit more of like enjoying that process a little more, enjoying the work that I'm doing and appreciating that more than just, you know, head down, get through it, and then enjoy the results at the end. I don't know, that's not a very exciting answer, but yeah, I don't know, maybe spend less on fashionable things and more on my food and more, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Listen to your parents more. That's a good one. I didn't listen to mine very much. That got me into trouble. So
Love it. And so, Penny, last question. When you hear the phrase fighting sickness with fitness, which is our gym model, what comes to mind when you hear fighting sickness with fitness?
What comes to mind with fighting sickness with fitness? I mean, that's a great motto. It is. It almost sounds like, though, that you want to kind of wait till you get to that stage to train, you know, and it does definitely help. Like once you're in that bad situation of being ill or being sick, I mean, physical training will definitely help you there. But it's before it even happens, you know, before you're even sick, you know, training on a daily basis. I mean, you know, you're obviously well aware of all the benefits, but you know, the reason I went home to South Africa from the UK was because my dad was really sick, and that was but primarily poor diet and not exercising enough, you know. So it's very close to home that and you know, I'm a huge believer in you have to eat well, you have to train well, and your mind has to be, you can't have like one thing only going on. You have to have all aspects that you're working on. And you know, your physical body, it's, you know, it's just like any other mechanism, like your car. If you're putting crap in, you don't run it well, and it's not going to perform well. So it's a really good logo to have. I mean, you can heal, your body heals itself. That's what it's designed to do. But you've got to treat it well. You've got to fuel it, you've got to train it. So yeah, I think that's a really good logo to have. Motivating.
Dang, Penny, I just want to thank you so much for, coming on the podcast. Aesza, thanks for hopping on the podcast. And
thanks for calling.
Penny,
sorry, I didn't have it in my phone. Sorry for the half an hour delay.
No, thank you for hopping on. And was there anything else that you want to share to our audience listening or watching this on online somewhere?
I mean, jiu-jitsu now is so widespread with the popularity of MMA and the UFC and that. It's not going to be hard to find a gym around that offers jiu-jitsu. And although it might seem a little weird to watch as an outsider, I think my advice would just be give it a try. Take your kids in, let them try it. You try a class. You'll be so pleasantly surprised. As you say, the number of people that are so humble and really awesome in the sport is incredible. So just give it a try.
Dang. All right. Well, thank you guys all for listening and watching the show. And until next time, let's stay healthy and keep on fighting sickness with fitness.
Thanks for having me.